this financial year, which would draw in, we calculate, £819,000 of funding. And when the programme is running at full tilt, it's anticipated there will be 600 programme starts in a year, and that would draw in just £2,340,000 worth of funding. So it's quite a serious programme. Aimed at helping people who really do have challenges and difficulties in getting into employment. And with that, and as I've explained earlier, with the good work that the economic growth team are doing, I hope it will be a bit of a ray of sunshine for people who do find it very difficult to get into the employment world. So thank you, Chair. With that, with those two schemes, you will see the recommendations at 3.1 to welcome the allocation for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and to continue the funding being targeted in line with the paragraph 4.6, and of course to welcome the new Connect to Work programme and to get our own Northamptonshire work programme put together as soon as possible so that we can take advantage of that initiative. So I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackerby, for your very in-depth introduction to that paper. But you covered off some really important issues there. Councillor Mercer, I know you wanted to talk on this.
Thank you, Chair. Well, there are several aspects in this that actually touch on my portfolio. First of all, under the Shared Prosperity Fund, there was previously a multiply fund, and as it says at 4.1, we got 1.9 million. I'm very sorry that that is not going to continue. That is for numeracy skills, and that is very, very well used at the moment. We are, sad that that is going to end, and we is at 4.8. It confirms that has not been confirmed for the next year. But what would take away with one hand, give with another. So instead we're getting the Connect to Work programme, which is very welcome. And with that, particularly trying to get people with a disability or health problems back into work. And we already have a service that does that, and that's called the Employment Disability Service at 4.19, which hopefully will be able to work with this and get up and running quickly, because it's already been doing that service. It's an excellent service, and they will be working on this. So, I'm really pleased that, because we were not sure what funding would come with that, to help that service continue, but this extra funding will obviously allow for that. So I really much welcome that, and as you've seen in the recommendation, that second part, the Connect to Work, is actually the Director of Adults in conjunction with the Executive Member for Adults Health and Wellbeing to work on that second programme. So, welcome obviously the Shared Prosperity Fund and extra funding for the area, just with that extra proviso about the multiply.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Howes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to pick out the bit with the 1.6 million for the UK Shared Prosperity Funding. I'm pleased that for the fourth year we're receiving some funding for this. Obviously, there's been a rural element to the UK Shared Prosperity Funding, and it's an element I've been really privileged and enjoyed being part of, because it's a really clear, direct, tangible thing that we do in terms of distributing this funding, putting it into areas. We've got a visit coming up where we're going to go and physically see some areas where we've distributed these funds and see for ourselves how much of an impact that's made. So it's just a really nice thing. Sometimes we're a little bit removed from some of the work that we do and seeing the direct benefits, but this is an example where we're very connected, I think, to what that money is going to be used for and how much of an impact it's made. And a big shout to the rural communities that have benefited from part of this funding, because they often sometimes get left behind, because our inner towns, larger towns, take a bit more of a voice sometimes. So it's been fantastic, and I'm pleased that that's coming through again, and I hope it continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howes. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Not surprisingly, I absolutely welcome this money that's coming into the Council for us to help to support some really important schemes. And I'd just like to draw people's attention to 5.2, where we talk about some of the key successes of this fund in the past, including investment of over £1 million in urban green spaces in Corby, Desborough, Higham Ferrers, Kettering, Rushton and Wellingborough. And also the fact that more than 20 businesses have been supported with grants to invest in decarbonisation projects. And I see that in the plan for how we spend this next round of the fund continues to include money for businesses to help decarbonise and investment in green spaces, but also includes decarbonisation of some community facilities. So all of these grants will be really useful and are helping us towards a greener and better environment here in North Northamptonshire. So I really welcome it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Just looking around the table, if anyone else wishes to speak. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you. I just thought I would add my remarks to this and also welcoming this funding. It after all will be a really good opportunity for North Northamptonshire. And as Councillor Brackenbury and Councillor Keane too pointed out, the boost for jobs, investment and local businesses cannot be ignored. But as a council, our role here is to use this investment wisely, and I'm sure that through our responsible management demonstrated by this administration, that we will make sure that North Northamptonshire remains an attractive place to work, live and invest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicol. Just looking around there more. Councillor Brackenbury, I'll come to you just to sum up some of that and look to find you a seconder.
Thank you, Chair.
You've worn it out.
would help. No, thank you, Chair. And thank you, colleagues, for your very supportive and helpful comments. And my thanks again to Councillor Keane for his remarks at the beginning of this discussion. Yes, I would like you, Councillor Mercer, I regret the discontinuation of the Multiply scheme, because I actually do think, it's one of those core skills, English and maths. It's absolutely fundamental. And if you don't have good numerical skills, it is a real lifelong handicap. So I regret that. But to some extent, maybe some of the Connect to Work funding may help people who would otherwise have benefited from the Multiply scheme. But I do fully take that on board. And yes, you're absolutely right to point out the Employment and Disability Service. They do a terrific job. And again, some of this Connect to Work funding, I think, will help in the excellent work that they currently do. Councillor Howes, absolutely. It's been a privilege to sit on the panel where some of the UK SPF funding has been dispersed, and we've had some very interesting and lively discussions with some excellent businesses and some excellent projects which we've been able to fund. And of course, even when sometimes we've had projects which we were not able to fund, we've been able to give feedback to that business and perhaps access to other funding streams which might be useful as well. So it's really been a privilege and it's really worthwhile work. So I'm very pleased to see that it's going to continue. Councillor Harrison, absolutely. The green investment is at the key of everything we should be doing. It should be at the heart of everything we're doing, is to try to make sure that what we are up to is sustainable in a long-term fashion. So, investment in green initiatives is really, really crucial. So, with that, thank you all for your comments. I welcome the funding. I welcome the 2 initiatives. And I continue, Chair, to move the recommendation.
Jolly good. Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Could I look for someone to second the report, please? Councillor Harrison, thank you so much. So that means the report has now been moved and seconded, and the recommendations are on page 382 to 383 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 13, Independent Advocacy Service, and I would like to invite Councillor Mercer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Independent Advocacy Service is a statutory duty, and we're seeking approval to commence procurement for it. The contract's due to expire on 31st of October 25, and there cannot be an extension, so we need to work to get a replacement. And it provides a service for adults and young people 16 to 17. So the suggestion is to have a 5-year contract +1+1, and we're asking for delegated authority for the Director of Adults in consultation with the Executive Member to take further decisions on this. Contract value is $194,700 a year, giving a total of $1,362,900 over the 7 years. And this is allocated for in existing budgets. And the service has to be independent of the council and cannot be in-house. And it provides advocacy for persons who cannot decide things for themselves. So where they have substantial difficulty in understanding, retaining information, lack capacity to make decisions around the provision of medical treatment, all laid out in 4.4, the different criteria that they would be eligible for this service. The scope is actually laid out in 4.5, and you can see all the different type of services that have been provided, and that's over 5,000 hours of advocacy to our residents in the last year, so it's a huge undertaking. So we set up a multidisciplinary group to review the effectiveness of the current delivery, and also because some people are not entitled to the statutory advocacy, we do provide signposting to residents for other services that they can tap into. So the executive asked to agree the recommendation in 3.1 for the reasons given in 3.2 to procure a new service.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. I'm just looking around the table if anyone wants to speak on this item. No? Okay, so the recommendations are on page 398. They have been moved. Can I look for someone to second the paper, please? Councillor Nicholl, thank you very much. So those that's been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to item 14, short breaks, transformation for working aged adults. I'd like to invite Councillor Mercer to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the proposal is to improve the outcomes for working age adults with a learning disability, trying to move away from the traditional bedded care for short breaks to more innovative models. For instance, we have the shared lives model, which is where somebody lives in a house with a carer, and that is something that we are expanding. Many of those carers are prepared to take people for short breaks, and that is a much better facility for our residents. So as well as shared lives, we're also looking to do supported holidays, as well as some in-house provision. This involves reviewing the provision at Pine Lodge, which is in Corby, over the next 12 months. So since Pine Lodge is built, our ideas of the best model of care have changed, and now the CQC recommends smaller units with up to 6 beds, whereas Pine Lodge is on 2 floors and has 12 beds, and that means it's not fully accessible. So also many people now have more complex needs which are not best met by a large bed-based service like Pine Lodge. So part of this review, it's proposed to bring forward a plan to adapt Pine Lodge to provide temporary accommodation by the Housing Directorate to provide short-term temporary accommodation which will reduce hotel and hostel use. The business case would also look to retain a facility as a provider of last resort for assessment and transitions, which could not be provided by the market. This could also provide short breaks to people who cannot source a service in the independent market. The move would also provide cost savings and improve outcomes, and that supports the Transforming Provider Service strategy and case for change that we produced some years ago. CQC rated Pine Lodge as requires improvement, and the officers have looked into refurbish it, but as you'll see from the report, they were quoting 4.2 million in 2022. Obviously, costs have gone up since then. The average occupancy levels have been low, at 58% in 24-25, and that means the effective unit cost is £4,000 a week, and that compares to the equivalent in the independent sector of about £3,000. So referrals to Pine Lodge are often rejected, explained in paragraph 4.1.14 for various reasons, and so that's why the take-up is not as high as we would like. Only 8 of the beds are currently usable, and that's due to damage by a previous resident, so one of the 3 suites isn't in use. And so the recommendations to the executive are set out in 3.1 to start a consultation with users of Pine Lodge to identify alternative provision, and at the same time build a business case to transform Pine Lodge into provision of temporary accommodation, and to move from in-house bedded solution to a commission model, for instance shared lives, supported holidays or bed-based breaks via the independent care sector, whilst also developing a case for an in-house enablement service which can act as provider of last resort and provide short breaks where the market is unable to do so, and a smaller transitions function. And the recommendation further seeks to give delegated authority to the Director of Adults in consultation with the executive member to take any further decisions or actions required to support these proposals. These recommendations are set out in 3.1 for the reasons in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer, and I really welcome this report, having had a look round that premises with yourself and the AD at the time, and I think it's fair to say that there is a need for some significant investment in that property. I also welcome the tie-up between adults and the housing department here to look to repurpose that building, because we know there's a contingency of people that need emergency housing and so on, just to get them through. So, you know, the building will be retained, and I welcome that approach to this problem that we have. But ultimately, we will be offering a much more superior service through the commissioning of the services for the short break stuff, and seeing firsthand some of the residents and you know, and how complex they can be. I think this will ultimately be a much better outcome for those individuals, which is what we all aim to achieve. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Mercer for bringing this paper forward and the work that will have gone on behind the scenes with your officers. I'm really pleased to see this. As you know, I brought forward with officers the Transforming the Council's Adult Social Care Provider Services strategy and case for change. And it's really good to see that we're, you know, well into the second phase of that now, and continuing to push forward in improving the services that we provide and putting our residents, the users, right at the centre of that, and making sure that we're giving them the best possible care and the best outcomes, and moving to a much more transformative way of delivering that care with them right at the centre of it. So I just want to say, you know, it's great to see that we're pushing on with this and making progress, and I can see it won't be long before we'll have done all the things that we said we were going to do, and we'll be starting again and looking at what's next. So thank you so much.
It's the nature of the business, constant improvement. Any other members wish to comment on in relation to this paper? No, go back to you, Councillor Mercer, to sort of wrap up on some of those comments.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Harrison. I know you put a lot of work into that provider transformation, and as you say, this is part 2 and it was always envisaged that we would move on to this. And as the leader said, it is about improving outcomes for people and making a much better facility for them. But at the same time, utilising that premise for another purpose. So if we can do a business case to, and if it's suitable for temporary accommodation, we want to tie that up together so that that is move forward at pace. So I'd like to propose that, Chair. And
thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Harrison, would you like to second that? Thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 415 of the agenda pack. They have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you so much. So we move on to item 15, Treasury Management Quarter 3 Report 24-25. And I'd like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to note the Treasury activity for the period 9-24-25 financial year as at the 31st of December, as shown in Appendix A to this report. Table 1 at paragraph 3.1 of the appendix shows a balance sheet summary forecast to March 31st, 2025. The overall forecast of external borrowing, internal borrowing and our Treasury investment is an overall net borrowing forecast of £257.3 million, which is a reduction from £279.3 million from the start of this financial year. Table 2 at paragraph 3.1 sets out the Treasury Management Summary. This shows a net borrowing as at the 31st of December of £252 million, which is a reduction of £18 million from the start of the year. Section 4 sets out our borrowing strategy and activity. At the 31st of December 2024, the authority held £431.8 million of long-term loans, a decrease of £6.3 million from the 31st of March, as part of its strategy for funding previous and current year's capital programmes. Outstanding loans on the 31st of December 2024 are summarised in the table at paragraph 4.8. The Council holds significant invested funds representing income received in advance of expenditure, plus balances and reserves held. Table 4 at 5.2 sets out the investment position and shows an increase of £38.9 million for the year to date, which is mainly due to timing differences between income and expenditure. The Council holds numerous property funds which are a medium to long-term investment and have delivered consistent returns. Following the termination of the Lothby Property Trust in May 2024, the Council's Chief Finance Officer has approved the redemption of units held in strategic pooled property funds. Funds returned from these funds will be invested in consultation with external Treasury advisors and in accordance with our Council Treasury Management Strategy. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation at paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Members, do you have anything you want to add to this? Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And this is always an interesting paper because we have always performed very well in terms of the Treasury management, you know, in the economic climate that we face. And I do think that credit must be given to everybody who's involved on the team to do that. You know, we are borrowing a little less. We haven't had any of the LOBO loans have not been called in, and it's pleasing that with the recent Bank of England interest rate cut, it may be that happy position might be maintained, because obviously with a lower interest rate, it's less likely that for the call-in option be exercised. So, you know, it's very good that we are keeping our eyes on what is a rather esoteric document. It's not the budget, it's how we manage it, and that is really reflects enormous credit on the whole finance team for doing so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. looking around the room, no further comments. Councillor Bunday has moved that report. Would someone like to second that report? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 464 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Shall we now move on to item 16, capital outrun for 24-25, forecasted outrun as of Q3. And Councillor Buckingham, I understand you want to speak on this item.
Thank you very much. 3 items on this paper that I would like to raise. The first is the significant variances over 300,000. And I note within that the Towns Fund, call it a cycle path from the train station to the town centre. The second one is a removal from the capital programme, and that is for a residential children's residential home provision 22-25, and realised, and this came up on the corporate scrutiny the other day, because we had the Children's Trust there. The members of that committee were very in favour of finding solutions to some of the children's accommodation. So don't know why that's being removed from. And then lastly is the underspend on the HRA of 11.1 million. And Table 5 gives out where that 11.1 million underspend. And I recognise that for the last several years it's new contracting arrangements, but that is money that isn't going into our improving our housing stock. So again, I will ask the same question I asked last year. Are we failing our tenants? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. So, Councillor Bunday, I'd like to invite you to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll take those comments probably in a different order. The removal of the accommodation is basically the capital set aside was for accommodation that was clearly in West Northants and not in geographically in West Northants. So as a consequence, it wasn't in our area anyway. So that's why that was removed. As far as capital spend on housing on the housing revenue account, in many ways, this council has its hands tied with having to deliver value for money, and if we don't deliver value for money, then we get criticised by our auditors, and trying to deliver houses and make sure that they're affordable and making sure that they're delivering value for money sometimes does cause a bit of a block. Having said that, and as was commented earlier, the 100% right to buy has only just come in. And that 100% right to buy, and also the use connected to that with the Section 106 money, which you weren't allowed to mix and match the two before, has actually freed up some facilities. We have got 5 houses in the pipeline. We've delivered 6 houses, and obviously we've got the Grange in Kettering. So things are moving, maybe not as fast as some of us would like, but they are moving in the right direction. Moving on to the report. This report sets out the provisional capital outturn position for 24-25 as forecast at December 31st, period 9. And asks the Executive to note the capital outturn for the General Fund and HRA for 24-25, to note the new schemes that have been approved since April 2024, and to note schemes that have been removed from the capital programme. Capital outturn for 24-25 is shown for the general fund in table 1B at paragraph 5.2 and shows a revised capital budget position of £106.4 million, including slippage and in-year approved programmes. The forecast spend is £57.1 million, which represents an underspend of £49.3 million against the revised budget, of which £47.2 million has been identified as requiring rephasing into the 25-26 budget. The explanation for the variances is set out in Table 2 at paragraph 5.3. The budget for many of the projects shown underspends will need to be reprofiled into future years. Detailed analysis by directorate is shown in Appendix A. Details are shown for projects over the £500,000 limit. Section 5.5 sets out 3 schemes to be removed from the capital programme. Details of each of these schemes are provided in Table 3. The capital outturn for 24-25 in respect of the housing revenue account has been updated and is shown in Table 5 at paragraph 5.9. The outturn for the HRA capital programme for period 9, quarter 3, shows a revised budget for 24-25 of £23 million, and this again includes slippage from previous years. The forecast is showing a spend of £11.9 million, which represents an underspend of £11.1 million. Detailed analysis by project is shown in Appendix B, and with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation in paragraph 3.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bunday, just looking around, anyone would like to speak on this item? So I'll come to Mr. Mark Rowley first.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify on the HRA capital outrun, there's been Cheltenham Road development that's been completed this financial year, Cannock Road, Stamford Road is ongoing, which will take up some more of the unspent in that area. We've also been on the acquisition trail for individual houses, and we've so far to date we've acquired 70 homes. It's nearly double what we did last year. So we are spending the money. I do believe that we don't accrue the money either, so any spends is captured every quarter. So it will catch up, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Bunday, for this report. So just to address the children's home, so it's absolutely right. The children's home is in the West, so it is right that the West pay for it and not the North. But I want to assure you, Councillor Buckingham, that you'll remember the paper that came, I think it was the middle of last year, when we talked about children's homes and we talked about care leavers and we talked about drop-in centres for our care leavers. It is absolutely a priority for North Northants to have our own children's homes within North Northants and for North Northants children. The money is there, it was set aside for that, so the budget is there along with our care leavers. So our pledge is that it will be happening in North Northants, but this one that has been removed from this absolutely should be removed because it's not in North Northants. But two other great things that are in this report is the SEND provision in Greenfields Primary School in Kettering, an outstanding school. And I'm not just saying it's an outstanding school because it sits within my division. It is literally outstanding. Ofsted has rated it outstanding, and they are putting an extra SEND provision within there. And also the Avenue School in Wellingborough. There are two great things, much needed. SEND provision we know is needed. We're working with our local schools to do that, and they sit with this in this report. So I absolutely welcome this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. I think that wraps up member debate on that. Councillor Bunday, come back to you just to answer some of that, and then I will find you a seconder.
Yes, I would say that as a capital programme, it's an ambitious capital programme, but I'm proud that we are making inroads into it. We are still a young council. We inherited a lot of things that needed to be reprofiled into future years to make them work. We inherited quite an interesting wish list rather than a capital programme to start with. And I think we're getting to the point now where we are actually having a definitive capital programme. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. And just looking around the table for someone to second that. Councillor Edwards, thank you very much. So those recommendations are on page 482 of your agenda packs. They have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Very good. So we move on to item 17, Capital Programme Update for 24-25. And I'd like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce that report, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one item on this report this month, and that is the Swimming Pool Support Fund additional budget approval of £285,000. And basically, this is extra money coming from Sports England, money that other councils couldn't deliver upon. So we have benefited from that for photovoltaic cells, and also the update of our boilers at Splash in Rushden. And with that, I'm happy to propose the recommendation of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. I'm sure the residents of Rushden who use the splash pool will be very pleased of the warmth of the water to keep it nice and warm with those enhanced boilers.
I didn't say we'd actually heat the water, though, Chair.
Okay. Jolly good. Well, one would assume with a boiler you go into. But any comments in relation to that report? Councillor Mercer.
Yes, as a resident of Rushden, I do agree that this is very welcome. We constantly have comments about the heat of the pool, and so if we any way of heating it up will be much appreciated. And obviously, it's really good that we're able to utilise the Sport England funding that wasn't picked up by somebody else. So any time we can manage to do that, it's a real bonus.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. So Councillor Bunday has moved that report. Would someone like to second that report? Councillor Mercer has seconded that report, so the recommendations are set out on page 504 of your agenda packs. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to item 18, Budget Forecast 24-25, as of period 9. And back to you, Councillor Bunday.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides commentary on the Council's draft revenue outturn position for 24-25 as at period 9, quarter 3, which is December 31st, 2024. And the draft outturn position for each of the funds is as follows. The General Fund, an overspend of £2.851 million. Housing Revenue Account, an underspend of £238,000. And a dedicated schools grant overspend of £5.641 million. The monitoring report sets out the material financial issues identified since the 2024-25 budget was set in February last year. The forecast in this report are based on the best available data and information of the operations of the Council and represents the view of the budget holders and assistant directors. In order to help safeguard the financial position of this Council, officers will continue to seek efficiencies in year to offset the forecast overspend. The Council has a contingency budget and reserves available to call on to help fund in-year pressures. However, it will look to achieve alternative mitigations in the first instance before these are applied. There are a number of pressures and savings across the General Fund, and the main ones are set out in the Executive Summary at Sections 2 of this report. The General Fund forecast outturn is set out in the table at 4.1, with a summary by Directorate at 4.2. The UK interest rates were reduced to 4.5% following the Bank of England meeting on the 6th of February. The next meeting is on the 20th of March. And the 12-month CPI figure for January remained the same as December, 2.5%. And the 12-month RPI figure for January is again unchanged at 3.5%. The Housing Revenue Account is a separate ring-fenced account within the Council for the income and expenditure associated with its housing stock. The HRA does not directly impact on the Council's wider General Fund budget or on the level of council tax. Income to the HRA is primarily received through the rents and other charges paid by tenants and leaseholders. The Council's overall outturn forecast for the housing revenue account as at period 9 is a forecast underspend of £238,000 against an approved budget of £42.425 million. Further details are set out in section 6 of the report. The Dedicated Schools Grant is a ring-fence grant allocated to local authorities by the government for the support of a range of education-related services. The original DSG budget for 24-25 had a budget deficit of £7.705 million. The forecast outturn at period 9 is a pressure of £5.641 million, resulting in an overall deficit of £13.347 million. Further details are set out in section 7 of the report. The pressures across the high needs block are a national issue, and the majority of councils now have a deficit on their DSG budget. This is largely as a result of the increase in the number of educational, health and care plans. It is important to note that the DSG budget is subject to continual review, and the council is working with the ESFA to develop a deficit recovery plan. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. Members, have you got anything to say in relation to this report? No? Okay, so the Councillor Bunday has moved the report. Can I look for someone to second that report, please? Councillor Nicholl, thank you very much. Recommendations are set out on page 511 and 512 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can confirm I've received no requests to consider the urgent items today, so that is the close of this meeting. And I would like to thank everybody who has attended today, members of the public, elected members and people online, and wish you all a very good day. Thank you.